Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest episode of ESPN Cricinfo Power Play. I'm joined by my co-host Firdose Moonda, and we also have a special guest for you, as ever, an interview with West Indies leg spinner Afy Fletcher. Now, Afy's been around for quite some time, made her debut in 2008, so she's seen quite a bit of change in West Indies cricket over the years. And she can speak to, I guess, one of the unique challenges that West Indies cricket faces, and that is obviously being a nation made up of many other nations. She hails from Grenada, a country of some 117,000 people. It makes up one of the 15 countries represented by West Indies cricket and one of the 8 countries represented in the West Indies women's squad currently touring England. So she can talk to us a little bit about that and lots of other interesting things that make up her cricketing story. Firdose, I guess in terms of West Indies, you paid very close attention to them during their World Cup qualifying campaign, which ended in heartbreak for them in a pretty fascinating last match for them. And so we won't see them at the 50-over World Cup. But what sort of did you make of that performance, and do you sort of back them to bounce back here in England on this tour?
Yeah, hi Velks. It's nice to be back. As you can see, the weather's changed because you're the one now in the t-shirt and I'm the one all wrapped up. But I followed the World Cup qualifiers actually, on a stream. It was not available on any kind of television through most of the world, actually, which I suppose tells you a lot about what kind of a resource was being put into it. And I want to start by saying I'm not actually sure it was the best place for a World Cup qualifier. The heat was extremely challenging. Players were constantly kind of receiving on-field treatment and hydration. And the surfaces were good, actually. So the games were quite competitive in terms of run scoring. But West Indies, it was so disappointing. Losing that opening game to Scotland is really something that they should and could have avoided. And had they done that, we wouldn't have ended up in the situation where they were playing against Thailand and they needed to win, but not just win. They needed to win by an absolute massive margin so that they could push their net run rate up above Bangladesh's. And so when they decided to bowl first, I remember thinking, like, is this a good idea? If you need a really high net run rate, don't you want to bat first and just like blast the ball everywhere, get the highest total you can? And we know Thailand are not the strongest batting side, no disrespect, of course, but then you can bowl them out for something, there and thereabouts. No, they decided the strategy was that they were going to bowl first. They were going to see what Thailand got and chase as quickly as possible. And then, horror of all horrors, Thailand ended up going from a situation where they were 85 for 6. West Indies could have bowled them out for under 100 at that point. They got 166. So West Indies had to chase 167 in 9.6 overs. And I remember watching this and watching Hayley Matthews just skying the ball, thinking, oh my gosh, like it was ugly. It wasn't nice hitting, we're just going to hit this everywhere. They were dropped several times. So some of the Thai fielding also left a lot to be desired. But they really, really went for the chase and they were in it and it was exciting and it was cricket like I've never seen. And then came these final moments where essentially the way net run rate works is that you've got to score a certain number of runs in a certain number of overs. And they got to the point where they needed to exceed the target. So they didn't just have to get 167, they actually had to get over 170. I don't know what happened with Stefanie Taylor. Was she not told? We just don't know the answer to that question, but she hit the last ball of the game for 6, which in any other circumstance would be something worth celebrating. And can you imagine this thing? A ball gets hit for 6, a game is won, and the winning side are in tears on the field. And, semi-finalists in 2022, and that World Cup, of course, deferred because of COVID. And now they won't be at the tournament. The men haven't been at the last World Cup either. So it's really a disappointing state of affairs. And I've described it in such detail because I'm hoping that our viewers and our listeners just relive those moments where you're right there, you're doing something incredible, scoring 160 runs in 10 overs, and you still don't go to a World Cup. So Afy Fletcher's probably going to describe it a lot better than I am. She was there. She ended up taking 4 for 20 in that game. She was among their top wicket takers. All of that means nothing because they won't be at the World Cup. And I know she shared some of that with you. And let's have a listen to that and a few of the other things that she had to say as well.
Well, Afy Fletcher, thank you so much for joining us on the Power Play podcast and welcome to England. You're here for West Indies series against England. How are you settling in?
Thank you for having me. Not the kind of weather I like, but still get a little warm sunshine in between. But I'm settling quite fine.
Fantastic. And we'll talk all about that tour a little bit later. But the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, we're looking at the moment at, I guess, one of the unique challenges West Indies face as a team in that you all hail from so many different countries and are geographically dispersed across quite a wide area. So you guys have to sort of really work on a lot of logistics in terms of getting together and preparing for your matches and tournaments and that sort of thing. You hail from Grenada. So I guess, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up there? What's it like as a place to live? And yeah, what's life like in your home area?
In Grenada, we got the warm sunshine, beautiful people, great food. That's a place I think you should look at to visit later on I mean, it's quite peaceful. It's quite like warm and friendly. So growing up there, it just like everybody is like your neighbor and everybody is like, good together and just like live like family in your community. Each community have their ways of bonding and the different certain personalities. So it's quite a nice place, quite charming place, and yeah.
Invitation accepted. I would love to come and visit. It sounds beautiful. Tell us a little bit then about what it's like for you guys training. Obviously, I would assume, when there's a tour coming up and the squad is selected, you convene and you join and you're working together. But how often does that happen during the rest of the year? And what do you do to train? Are you seeing other West Indies squad members quite regularly training, or do you have to go off and train largely on your own in Grenada?
Well, well, now, plenty have been done to get us together. But before that, like growing up, when I just made the team, a lot of work have to be done in my country. And then in between, we will get a camp. But most of the work, like back in my career, have been done at my country. But now that things have advanced and, a little more income have been generated and all those things, West Indies have been trying to put in more camps, get everybody together to get more camps as we go along. But back then, was a lot of personal work in countries was being done. But kudos to the board, for doing some work to get us together, try to get us together. I think at one point in time, like most of our time we've been camping in Antigua, very regular, at a point in time. And then now things have, advanced, so we get more camps. Yeah.
So in those earlier days, what did that work look like when you were on your own in your home country? Were you at your local cricket club? Were you just training at home? Who was helping you out? What were you doing then?
Well, basically I trained with several coaches, different coaches, Um, I work along with different coaches, and I even worked along with my partner. He have been very, very supportive of me, and he helped me a long way, a lot. Yeah, when I'm back home. So we have several coaches that I work with, plus my partner, and the structure at home, in the Caribbean with the organizations in the countries, I know it's not that advanced and great as out here in those countries like England and Australia and those places and them. So it's kind of like a struggle and a rough road for, the cricketers in the Caribbean country. But I we have coaches and that we work with as we go along, in the country.
And so, yeah, you mentioned your partner there and the help that he was able to give you. Can you tell us what those coaching sessions look like? Is he's obviously a keen cricketer, but what sort of things did you have him doing to help you?
I mean, he fitness on the fitness, he will push me, At one point in time when we did some workout, I ended up puking because he pushed me so hard. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, he very like, you know, in terms of the work ethic, when it comes to the training, he have no friends there, He will he will make you get the work done. He will push me until, and make sure, I get in the stuff that I require, what I need to. Yeah, so he'll make sure you make the time and get me to get the work in, and and also we like he have me like morning and evening. He will wake me up in the early morning to get out of bed, out of the comfort zone and hit the road, to get up and out running, or if we have to do skills. Yeah, so like basically at a point in time he had me like going twice a day, morning and the evening. So when I go the morning, whatever chores I have to do after I do the morning skills, then I have to get myself ready for the afternoon skills.
Oh, fantastic. And what's your partner's name?
Quite really.
So big thanks to him, we think. Maybe not when you're feeling awful after a terrible session, but big thanks to him. Um, I guess one other aspect of family life that's really important to you, you had a baby boy not so long ago, back in 2021, so he must be about to turn 4. What's it like to be, an international cricketer with a toddler in tow?
Yes, I mean, it's challenging, but also, I mean, a great experience. I mean, to have him is really a blessing. And missing out missing out on so much things right now. I mean, it's kind of hard, but at the end of the day, I tell him, I'm doing it for him, so that he could have something to fall on, going in the future. But I must say, in the beginning, I mean, if it wasn't for the support of my family, friends, things would not have been as how it is right now. So I must say, always grateful for them, my family and friends. So when I say family, I mean my sisters, brothers, mother, plus my partner family, and plus my friends and them. Yeah, so I mean, they have been really good and supportive to me, and that made the journey a bit easier. And also to the board, who who also considered, accepting my pregnancy and, giving assistance also, and, continuing with my contract and all those things.
Yeah, we're seeing that more and more in our sport. Women who are able to come back after having children, and it wasn't so long ago that was a rarity, but it seems to be becoming more and more common. And you're sort of helping to blaze a trail there and show other women that it can be done. Can you just sort of tell us a little bit more about what it was like getting back after, having a baby? I mean, that's quite the pregnancy and, obviously having him and then caring for a newborn and then getting back into cricket. I mean, it must have been a difficult thing to do.
Yes, it is. I mean, to be honest, the procedure that I went through was cesarean also. So it was a natural birth, so, it was a bit more challenging. But I must say, as I say, kudos from the support staff of the board also, to work along with me and push me to get back. And also, as I say, my family who accepted and decided to help me along the way to help raise my baby boy and look after him. So, yeah, basically, a lot of work had to be done, to get back there. And I must say, it was challenging, but I mean, it's worth the challenge.
Absolutely. And back fighting fit now. I guess you're sort of 38 years old now and still going strong. Do you ever feel like there comes a time in your career, maybe you hit 35 and up, where you start to hear outside noise saying, oh, when are you going to do the next thing? When are you going to stop playing sport? Or do you feel like actually, that's not a factor for you?
Well, to be honest, and my support around is like, just keep doing what you're doing, continue to work hard. I mean, just once you keep yourself fit and you do what you have to do, I mean, once you keep performing, then, you just have to, I mean, I don't really let the noise come to me and always try to blank it out as much as possible. I learn to leave off the positives and not taking the negatives. So I mean, I know my body, I know myself, and then as long as I'm performing and I have the support, then there's no need to leave off the negative energy. But I know at a point in time in my career when I know I have to move on to the next step. So at a point in time, I think my body is going just fine, and I'm trying to do as much as I can for the team. So there's no need to try to leave up the negative at the moment.
Fantastic. And speaking of, I guess, taking the positives, it's been a bit of an up and down sort of 6 or 7 months for West Indies. You guys had that amazing performance at the T20 World Cup, making the semi-finals, and then obviously the disappointment just recently of not getting through the qualifiers for the 50 over World Cup coming up toward the end of this year. Can you just sort of talk us through the mood in the camp, and how are you guys feeling after what must have been a really difficult qualifying campaign?
I mean, it's really, really hard. It's really, really difficult. I mean, it's really heartbroken, to be honest. This one really touched everyone. I mean, there's there was only one chance with each game, and the minute you slip, you slide, and that's what happened. And then, I mean, the mood was really, really emotional after that last game. And then, I mean, to be honest, it's gonna be a while, to get over, because especially when you see the World Cup happening, I mean, it will be really sad. But as you say, you learn, you live and you learn from your mistakes. And hopefully, I think we went to the drawing board and, had chats and, hopefully that will help in terms of, I know that the psychologists have been made use of, I mean, after that that moment. So I hope that the girls, we can, build and move past that, take the positives, as I keep saying, to move on, from build again from here, from this series going forward, and keep expanding on our skills and our knowledge, and that it can move us forward together as a team.
Sure. Can you sort of highlight maybe the key learnings that you can take away from that and turn into, again, like a positive going forward? What sort of things do you think can be worked on now?
I said, sometimes you only have one chance, and then in terms of once you know the importance and the valuable of that one chance, if you can value it that much and, make use of that one chance, that's one of the things we can take into consideration going
Yeah,
forward.
for sure. For sure, absolutely. And I guess in terms of what we were talking about at the start of the conversation, just the unique challenges and the progress that has been made as well for getting you guys together to train and work together and tours and that sort of thing. I guess you've seen over the course of your long career now the whole spectrum of how things were to how things are now. Is there one thing in particular that you'd like to see change or improve or be done differently before you end your career in terms of West Indies cricket and how you guys can sort of prepare as a team? Is there any one thing you'd like to see change before you finish your playing career?
Well, man, during the years, I think that every year or every year that to be honest, you see things improve, try to improve by the board, to try to help the team, and also the coaches try to implement things to develop and learn as we go along. So I hope that I don't have anything in mind at the moment, to be honest. I mean, as we go along, I've been seeing progress making. So the one of the things is that I hope someday that like the organizations like in the countries could really see how important and valuable that women's cricket is really growing and develop so that proper structures can be really being worked on in the Caribbean islands, yeah, to make the pool wider. I think that's one of the areas where we're struggling to have a wider pool. And then I think is the organizations in the countries, the associations, I think that they need to put a little more effort, try some way to get that effort into helping the young players. Because I know there is a lot of young players that's interested and really want to play the game and look up to players. I mean, so we need to really. That's one of the areas I believe I want to see really being worked on. To help the cricket in the Caribbean.
Yeah, got it. So is it a case of it's hard to get young women interested in the sport because there are other sports challenging for their attention? Or is it more when they are interested, there's a little bit of a gap between sort of them being, showing some talent and making the West Indies team? Is that where there needs to be a bit more depth, do you think?
Well, the Caribbean, in terms of source of fun, that's one of the gaps, within the islands. So I don't know what can be worked out, to fill that gap there to get proper structures in the countries. So that's one of the challenges.
And I guess have you seen improvement in that area sort of since you first started to sort of now, does it feel like it is a more professional sport for women in the Caribbean now?
Well, mainly in the organization of West Indies, but like in terms of, I said, the associations in the countries itself, it's still a bit of struggle and challenge with financially.
Yeah. So what do you think is the solution?
Hmm, that's a good question. Maybe if somebody really willing to maybe see West Indies cricket grow and try to help somebody
Yeah.
out from out there,
Yeah.
decide to give some kind of support or so if you want to see, if you like the Caribbean flair and the West Indies cricket to see grow, if somebody
Amazing.
out there
Yeah,
can help
yeah.
with that.
Send the call out right here. And so I guess you're preparing to face England here in England very, very shortly. And they are a team that's undergone a lot of change recently. They have a new coach, they have a new captain. And this will be sort of basically the first series that we see that in action. How are you viewing England as an opposition during your tour here?
Well, England has always been a tough opponent in their home ground. So like I said, I mean, we just came from the qualifiers and we've been on the back foot. But I mean, as I said, we had discussions around. So I think this will be a great opportunity for us to try and rebuild. And I mean, it's not one of the easiest tools or challenges against a great opposition like England. But I mean, I hope that it can, like our team can really work together and try to build from this series and try to really come out on top probably in one or two games, and that I think that will help the team and help us to go forward from here.
Well, Valkerie, that was so great. I'm so glad you got to chat to her. A little bit envious that I was not able to be part of your conversation, but I did have some chats with Afy Fletcher at the T20 World Cup in Dubai. And, one of the things that really strikes me about her journey is that because she lives pretty much quite far away from, the main centers of excellence and where all the other players live, she's got to train with her partner. And I think it really so nicely summarizes the geographic challenges that West Indies face. And let's just put it in perspective by saying it sounds idyllic, these Caribbean islands in the warm ocean, and you can maybe swim to each other. It's not like that. In order to get to each other, they've got to travel often through a central hub, often through Barbados. And so you're getting people who are taking 3 and 4 flights just so that they can be in another place to play a domestic game. That doesn't happen in countries on a mainland like ours, South Africa, for example, who, we're also a developing country and we're a big country and there are definitely travel challenges, but our furthest flight is 2 hours, Cape Town to Johannesburg or Cape Town to Durban. So you're not getting the kind of challenges that they have in the West Indies. And I know that Afy explain to you how things are improving, how the board is doing much more. I spoke to Johnny Grave last year before last year's T20 Men's World Cup, and he was explaining to me just the challenges in running their first class system, where you're flying whole teams, 3, 4 flights. It takes the whole day. It's expensive to put them up. And that's just to run a domestic game. So Afy's also call for some funding, I think, is very, very relevant. And, I don't know if we know where they can get that from, but did you get a sense that she's quite hopeful, that she thinks, okay, we're going to turn the corner even though we haven't qualified for a World Cup?
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. A lot to unpick from that, in the sense that she did sound very determined. I mean, you could hear in her voice the heartbreak of not making a 50 over World Cup. And that's not over yet, because they're now going to, as she said, have to sit there and watch that tournament and not be a part of it. But the best they can do is really just try and use that as a bit of fuel, beginning with this tour of England here, and just sort of forge forward from there. But also too, I guess, as you mentioned, the issue of funding, and because it's expensive to bring these players together from such a geographically dispersed locate area, to bring them all together as often as you can to train together. So the question of funding is always a bit like, but where from? So I mean, I guess all they can really do as players, because some of this is going to be above their pay grade, but all they can do as players is play a brand of cricket, if we want to call it that excites and entices fans and funds alike, and just hope things improve. And I think I do keep harping back to it, but that T20 World Cup performance where they reached the semi-final, almost seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, they hadn't given an indication that that they were on track to do that, and they just sort of showed that they can really be mixing it in those big tournaments. And then now they don't get the chance with this 50 over World Cup, so they're going to have to do it in the other sort of tours and that sort of thing in the meantime, really.
Yeah, look, it's probably fortunate that we've got World Cups pretty much every year, right? So they miss out on an ODI World Cup in October, November, and it's 7, 8 months later, there's a T20 World Cup in England, which they will be part of. So it's not as though it's such huge gaps. And of course, I know from covering Zimbabwe, who also miss out on a lot of World Cups, that the biggest thing about that, apart from like almost the embarrassment of we're a big team and we're supposed to be there, is what you don't get in terms of participation fee. So, when Zimbabwe didn't qualify for the 2019 World Cup, they ended up not having the money to pay staff for several months. And staff had given up portions of their salary beforehand in the hope that, we're going to qualify and then we'll get the money back. And then that didn't happen. So I think the financial element will hurt, but the opportunity to get back in, we know in 2027, there's a Women's Champions Trophy, top 8 teams. So you would hope that West Indies would see themselves among that. And I think that there's enough opportunity for them to just keep pushing. The issue, I think, will be on sort of talent pool development. And I had this chat with Hayley Matthews also at that T20 World Cup, where, there's a lot of talent, a lot of it also gets lured into other things, whether it's other sport, whether it's corporate careers. It's a challenge across the developing world where money is not the reason that you start off playing the game. And it's also not the reason that you keep playing it. You've really got to become a Hayley Matthews to actually see, proper financial benefit. So how do they get that talent is an interesting one. Now, you'll remember we interviewed young Zayda James, who took that ball to the chin from Laura Wolfart. And she's an example of someone who is very young, wants to play, from a sporting family. And she's the kind of person, I saw her at the World Cup qualifiers. At one point, she was opening the batting. I mean, that's quite a thing to do to one of your youngest players. They've got some new players on the England tour as well. Are you seeing that the talent pool is there? Or when you look at it, do you think, oh, goodness, it's just Hayley Matthews and 10 others?
No, do you know what? It's interesting. You mentioned Zayda James there, and she's almost becoming one of the more experienced hands now, given, and she is so young, but she's played, quite a bit now. And that's what you want, is that there's players that have been around for a very long time, like Afy Fletcher, like Hayley Matthews, like Stefani Taylor, and then the middle sort of players that are, due to take over from them when they move on. And now they're unearthing some younger players as well. So on this tour of England, we have got Jazara Claxton. She's a 19-year-old fast bowler from St Kitts. And also Raeliana Grimond. She is an all-rounder 20-year-old from Guyana. So they could both make their international debuts on this visit to England. And so that's giving them the opportunity to break into that next level and gain experience there. That's how they're going to continue to grow what at the moment, by all accounts, is a fairly small talent pool. But if you can sort of keep growing it in that respect and have the upper echelon, the ones that are going to take over from them and the new ones coming through, if you can keep that flow going and, recognize that that's really important, then that's going to stand them in good stead.
Yeah, it will. And I just want to mention one other thing. Now that you've mentioned geography and we spoke about the dispersed geography of the Caribbean, an interesting thing that's cropped up just in the past week, actually, is that Cricket West Indies want to lobby the IOC to come up with a qualification pathway through which they won't qualify as Barbados, Jamaica, etc., but as the region, which is really unheard of in an Olympic context. And I know you covered a Commonwealth Games, was it, where Barbados were playing as Barbados, so obviously not all the players that we know from West Indies would have been involved, but certainly the ones we know who are from Barbados would have been. What do you think? Do you think should the IOC let them qualify as a region, or would that be very unfair? And everybody else has to qualify as a country. So should they rather say, sorry guys, like this is the way it is at the Olympics, you've got to qualify as a country?
Yeah, that is really interesting. I feel myself personally that they should compete as West Indies. That's how they compete as a cricket team. Yeah. Why not? And it is a fairly unique situation. I guess it's different because in the Olympics, you've got Great Britain competing as Great Britain, but in the Commonwealth Games, they compete as their individual countries, which we saw with the Commonwealth Games that you just mentioned. But Barbados was the one representative from West Indies. They didn't have any of the other countries represented. And that, that could very well, there's various aspects to that. Is it because, they didn't have enough from each country to represent each country? They didn't have enough places in the pool, otherwise we'd be playing, a very, very, very large pool of matches representing one region and not another. So it does bring in logistical issues. But I think cricket in the Olympics is, it's newly back for 2028. So I think there can probably be a little bit of common sense applied here, and that, they do compete as the region. I don't
know about that. I'm not sure. I haven't seen common sense applied in a sporting context when it comes to administration. So I think you're being very, very hopeful. But yeah, it is a good argument, right? And I think Cricket West Indies have thought it through. I think they've really considered that, hang on a moment, we may not get there if we're not able to qualify as the region, if we're just hoping that we qualify as Barbados. Because as you say, some of those islands, is it St. Lucia, where we had the 200-meter sprinter at the Paris Games, who was like the first person from her island to ever win a medal. So you just don't have the people. And I must say, I think if the IOC allows something like that, I wouldn't be that surprised if you see, for example, teams like Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda wanting to compete as East Africa, because then there'd be a much, much stronger team. And of course, we used to have an East African team all those years ago. Or even I mean, dare I say, what if Zimbabwe knock on our door and say, hey, let's go as Southern Africa and you can have a couple of our players. So I suppose it does open up that conversation. And I mean, what does it mean for a team like Scotland? Would they fancy their chances more of competing if they were to go as Great Britain or as Scotland? I don't know, actually. How would it work?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, sort of on the surface of it, you think, oh, okay,
Mm.
It seems like a pretty logistical argument to, in this case,
Yeah.
Let it be West Indies. But then you do open an entire can of worms when we're looking at various regions competing or not competing as a region as a whole. So yeah, that's a big old can of worms maybe for another podcast, but it does
Yeah, it's
just
such an
illustrate.
interesting thing.
Isn't it? And it does just illustrate, the unique, well, I guess it's not unique because we've raised a few different examples, but the challenges, that are faced by the West Indies region and, in terms of competing as individual countries or the Caribbean, itself. So yeah, it does raise a lot of interesting questions. I guess one other thing that I took from our chat with Afy was it's sort of something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is we talked about her coming back as a mum, and we've had a few guests talking about that, and it's just really nice to see that becoming more and more commonplace in women's cricket. But also, she's 38 years old now. I mean, she's been playing for 17 years. And I really liked what she had to say about how she views that, because you get the impression, and speaking to other players, this outside noise does start when you hit 35. It's like, oh, so what are you going to do when you retire? What are you thinking of next? And actually, there seems to be a bit of a movement now of players saying, well, hang on, why? I'm still fine. And we heard Afy Fletcher say right there, I'm keeping myself fit. My body's telling me it's okay to go on. I'm going to go on. We saw Susie Bates and Sophie Devine at the T20 World Cup would talking about, being the elder stateswomen of their team and sort of playing on, well into their late 30s. And I think the men feel it too. I think there's pressure on, the guys once they, head towards 40. We see, a handful playing at around the age of 40 and above, but it's still a rarity, although becoming more and more common. And I think that's just a really nice thing to see, is that, I think I've spoken about it before, but sort of not feeling like, age is anything more than a number if you are performing on the field of play. So yeah, I think that's just sort of something really interesting that she had to say. And I just really like that she didn't sort of listen to outside. She was listening to the inside and her body, and that she's going fine and going to continue. So I found that really, quite inspiring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the poster person, I suppose, for over 40s and performance would be someone like a Faf du Plessis, who I think would put some of the 19, 18, 20, 25-year-olds to shame with a very dedicated fitness routine, and doesn't seem to have lost much of his skill. But as you say, we've got players in their late 30s. Brendan Taylor's about to make an international comeback. He'll be 39 quite soon. I don't think 40 now is what 40 was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think it's, says she who is soon to approach 40. But, it does feel as though maybe we've just created lifestyles that are a little bit more helpful to us feeling younger as we get older. I mean, look, there's definitely someone like Adele Steyn, and of course he did a very hard job in fast bowling, said after he turned 30, the injuries just mounted up. But I think there are other disciplines, someone like Imran Tahir, who I think is about 65 now, and he's still playing, and and he's obviously got a completely different physical routine and regimen, and he is of course only 46 for those who are wondering. But I did like that about her. I also think in a place like West Indies, where you probably want quite a few experienced players to bring through the uncapped players that you mentioned, the likes of Zayda James that we've spoken about, because you really do need a kind of mentorship system in place. And again, I'll just map it onto a men's example that I was dealing with this week, which is the Zimbabwean one, where, they don't play a lot, but this year they're playing 11 test matches, and they've got 3 players, Sean Williams, Sikandar Raza, and Craig Irvin, who are 38 and 39. And they really want them to stay and to hang on so that the younger players can just learn a little bit about what it's like to be playing at that level, because they get so little of it. So I think experience in a team where you're not playing that much, and of course West Indies now by virtue of missing out on the World Cup, will not be playing as much as they would want to be. That will be very important. I guess before we go, I want to turn our attention to the West Indies tour of England. So it's not what it could have been, right? If West Indies were going to the World Cup, then I guess this could have been a little bit of like a taster or a teaser. But it's important for England. New captain, new coach, new everything, new kind of, I guess, talk starting about we're going to win a World Cup. And this is the funny thing about English sport. Like, I think they do it more than anyone else, and they build up a lot more than anyone else. And I'm saying that as a South African, and we spend every World Cup thinking this has got to be it. This has got to be it. This has got to be it. So I'm wondering, kind of, first of all, do you think West Indies will be competitive enough for an England side that I'm sure will have a lot to prove? And then secondly, is this a good sort of first outing for this new English regime?
Yeah, I 100% hope that West Indies are going to be competitive in this series. I think England need that as much as anything. You know, they need to basically, I think, show that they can perform under pressure situations. So let's just hope they do get put under some pressure, because if it's just easy for them, it'll be like, oh, okay, we'll wait until India come, or wait until the World Cup, and there'll be a lot more questions and answers. So I think they need to sort of go out and perform from the outset, really. I mean, this is a big test for them, and it's really interesting. As you mentioned, new coach, new captain. We've got some new names in the squad that aren't so new. We're not talking about bringing through any, young kids other than Mahika Gore, but I mean, she's obviously experienced. She has, played for England. She also played quite extensively for UAE as a very, very young player. She has been named in their squad for the one-day internationals, which is the second leg of the West Indies visit. But yeah, she's 19, left arm seamer. She's had a few sort of stop starts with she was finishing school, but then some injuries and that sort of thing. So she's back named in the one-day squad. So she's sort of the youngest of them. But then we've got some players returning, basically on the back of strong domestic form that's been really well emphasized. So we've got Emma Lamb is back. You might remember from the 2022 visit by South Africa, she in those one days scored 250s and 100, and she, from opening, and so, she's back to get another chance because she has just been making runs from the outset in domestic cricket. She has really, said, I want a place back. So we've got Alice Davison-Richards. She is back. She's been scoring some runs for Surrey. Tammy Beaumont's been named in the T20 squad. Now, she lost her place ahead of those Commonwealth Games that we were talking about. She did play on the winter tour of New Zealand back at the start of last year, and also on the tour of Ireland, but that was whilst the top line T20 players were preparing for the World Cup. But she has been named in the T20 squad, and I sort of say, well, why not? I mean, I would really like to see, her have another go in T20s. I think she well and truly deserves that. Paige Schofield, who we spoke to before the tour of South Africa over the winter, and then she ended up having to come home. A training incident, hurt herself, and didn't get to play a match in the country of her birth. So she is back in the squads for England as well. Lindsay Smith, the left arm spinner. Now, Sophie Eccleston is not named in the T20 or the one day international squads. She has been battling an injury. She did turn out for Lancashire middle of last week, but the feeling was that, she just wasn't quite, ready to play international yet. So they want to see her playing a little bit more at domestic level, just to see how she gets through that. So Lindsay Smith is the left arm spinner in the squads there. So like I say, they're familiar names. And one I should also mention too, Izzy Wong. We see her back now. She got her place back on that tour of Ireland, but she sort of has basically since the end of 2022, she's only played 3 T20s and 1 one-day international, and that was, on that tour of Ireland I mentioned. So she was struggling with some rhythm and run-up issues and that sort of thing, and she has basically, impressed on the tour of Australia with England A. They went out there after that Ashes tour to basically try and get some experience through the England A players, and really impressed out there. So she will perhaps feature at some point during this West Indies visit. So like I say, they're all the familiar names, but ones that haven't been in the England squads for a little while. So they're getting a go on the strength of performances in the lead up to this series. So it'll be really interesting to see which of them, get a go, and which of the ones that, that we would expect to be there perform in this series against West Indies.
Yeah, exactly. And it just speaks to the depth in the England squad, which is something that I think that'll be the contrast. It'll be England's depth getting exposed and getting a taste of international cricket, and then maybe West Indies depth or lack of depth being something that we start to notice. Personally, what I'm excited about for this series is to have a look at Nat Sivabrunt as captain. I think just, having been around, having chatted with her, having seen the way she is as a player, as a senior member of the team, it'll be really exciting to see how she evolves into this new role. Of course, her life has also changed. She's become a mum. So I actually thought when she was named that, like, wow, this is a lot for one person, a big life change, and now also taking over the captaincy. And yeah, I'm really interested to see how that goes for her. We often talk about it in the men's game and how it changes. It's completely different, isn't it, in terms of the roles that people have as a parent. So yeah, I'm really interested to see that. And I guess the last bit of news I can give you from our front down here is that South Africa, India, and Sri Lanka played in an ODI tri-series earlier in the month, which was really, really, really difficult. The conditions were the hottest, I think, that people in Sri Lanka said they had ever been. Pretty much all the players needed treatment at some stage. The South Africans were particularly badly affected. Tasman Brits had to go off the field several times over the course of the series. We also saw Karabo Meso, the young wicketkeeper, have to go off the field. And South Africa did really badly, which is a slightly worrying sign under the new coach, Mandla Mashimbi. They didn't make the final of that tri-series. India, of course, were completely dominant, and I think that is maybe a bit of a warning sign for ahead of their home World Cup. But it was a little bit concerning to see South Africa fall so badly behind. Marizanne Kapp wasn't playing that series. She was being rested because they're monitoring her workload, and she's had a couple of league commitments as well. So without Marizanne Kapp, South Africa don't quite look like a side that can challenge for tournament playoffs or maybe even the trophy. But the last kind of point I'll make on that is Annerie Dirksen, who I think you'll remember from the T20 World Cup, out of nowhere, reeled off 2 half-centuries in a row and her maiden one-day 100, and suddenly evolved into a batter that really looks the part. So she's young, and I'm really excited to see what she brings to the table as the South African side develops. But lots and lots of work for them to do, or we'll be sitting another year and another no World Cup. Yeah, anything before you sign off on your side, Valks?
I was just about to say, on that cheery note, let's head off.
Trust us to bring that kind of thing.
Yeah, keeping it real. No, I'm just really, as you mentioned earlier, looking forward to this home series, England versus West Indies. I think it's going to be a real test of England, really. I want to see how they bounce back from that Ashes 16-0 defeat, and just see how they mean to turn it around under, as you mentioned, new captain Nat Sivabrunt, but also new coach Charlotte Edwards. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see how they go about it. For now, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Firdose, and we will speak to you next time on ESPN Cricinfo Power Play.